Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Craig, Spirit of Vinyl. How we doing? Hope you guys are all having a great week. It's finally Friday. Cheers, everybody. No beers today. Just give me some vodka. A little bit of vodka, a little bit of Rockstar, mix it together. That way you can be drunk and buzzed at the same time. Get some energy going on this Friday night. So, I was thinking, what am I going to do this week? What am I going to talk about, And then I wasn't even sure what the hell I was going to do or if I was going to do anything today. I had a couple ideas, but, wasn't really feeling a whole lot right away. But I saw a Facebook post earlier today, and the question was to name four bands that kind of formed your musical taste or things like that. And I know we've done stuff like this in the vinyl community before, formative threads and so on. And when I was thinking about that, I was like, okay, well, I do the same thing, but four is not enough, number one. Four is not enough. So that's basically what I'm talking about. Some of the earlier stuff, the bands that kind of got me into music, and some of the earlier stuff about, and I'm not going past high school in this. And I'm not making it a thread. I'm not planning on it anyway, because threads to me are always a little bit shorter. Something you can do that's quick. This will take a little bit longer than that. So basically, that's pretty much it. I'm just going to show some stuff and kind of talk about, my history with music or whatever. So I'm going to go way back. I don't know on the years on this. I just pulled out. I'm like, okay, I'm pulling out bands that I want to talk about here, and we'll figure it out as we go along. Billy Squier's Don't Say No. This album for me was one of the first records I ever owned. I got it on cassette tape back in the day. Let's see here. Manufactured by a subsidiary of 1981. So I would have been 12 when this record came out. And I got this probably in 81, or would have been probably more like 82 when I got this record. My parents bought it for me for my birthday one year on cassette. So In the Dark, The Stroke, My Kind of Lover, kind of starts it off. Lonely as the Night's on here. Don't Say No. This is a great record, and this is one of the first rock albums that I owned that was my own. And this kind of starts the love of rock and roll, I guess. And other than just radio music or whatever, and of course a lot of this stuff was on the radio. The Stroke was on MTV, although I didn't have MTV at the time, but I had seen the video, and those songs and My Kind of Lover stuff were getting radio play. So Billy Squier was huge. So when I started collecting vinyl records, or when I started collecting vinyl, I guess you don't have to say vinyl records, big faux pas, right? I had to buy this. I had to get this early Billy Squier. Well, early for me, Billy Squier anyway. So, so that's kind of what starts off my love of music altogether. And then you all know the story. I've told it before, but my friend introduces me to Kiss. But I'm talking about my formative time here. I was introduced to Kiss, I heard Love Gun and those earlier records, but at the era I was at, it was like Creatures of the Night was actually The Elder was their newest album when I first got into Kiss. And when Creatures came out, my friend gave that to me for my birthday at one time. But I remember this when Lick It Up came out. Watching the Unmasking on MTV and just waiting up all night to see the video for Lick It Up so I could see what Kiss looked like without makeup. Because like I said, I didn't have MTV, so I had to stay on, I think it was on TNT or one of the TBS channels or whatever, and watch Night Flight or something. And I knew they were going to premiere it, so I stayed up real late on like a Friday night and watched Night Flight so I could see the Lick It Up video, so I could see what Kiss looked like without makeup. And so this record is one of those formative records, and this era of Kiss is the era that I love. I mean, I love the 70s stuff, but this is the era that they were in when I was in that formative years. So that's kind of why I'm showing this. And when I'm showing records, I'm not necessarily showing my favorite records by a band, just some of the ones that really kind of introduced me to the bands and got me really going into them or whatever. So, but this is a great record, you know. Vinnie Vincent on here, Eric Carr, just great guitar work. Just a great record all the way around. The first Unmasked Kiss album. And I think this was like 84, so I would have been 15, 83, so I would have been 14 when this record came out. So, all right. So what Kiss leads to is what else is there in rock and roll, right? Because Billy Squier's a little different. I get into Kiss, what other like hard rock bands are there? And it leads to bands like AC/DC. I picked High by Hell. This is my all-time favorite AC/DC album. So that's why I pulled this one out. And of course, this is before I was into the band, before I was into AC/DC when this came out. But when I got into AC/DC, you know, you go back and I was listening to Bon Scott, and I always enjoyed the Bon Scott era a lot more overall, if you want the truth on that. So AC/DC was one of those bands that was really, really informative. And then, of course, Black Sabbath is also another one of those bands. And, of course, Sabbath, by this point in time, when I'm 14 or 15 years old, is already well moved on past Ozzy and past Dio, you know, and I'm listening to Ozzy. But I get into Sabbath because first, I'm listening to Ozzy Speak of the Devil, and a friend of mine tells me, hey, all those are Black Sabbath songs. So I started listening to Black Sabbath, and Black Sabbath really hit it with me. It was really one of those bands that just stuck with me and really helped form my taste in music altogether. And the other one that really did it for me in the beginning was Iron Maiden. This is the Power Slave record. This is a great record. This is their 5th overall, right? Hang on. Iron Maiden, Killers, Number of the Beast, Peace of Mind, Power Slave. Yes. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. In my head, that's it. So Iron Maiden was another one of those bands. Of course, Iron Maiden was huge, and we all saw the videos for Run to the Hills and, you know, all the different things that were going on there. And I really got into this record when this came out. It was one of my very first concerts was this tour. I saw the Live After Death tour, or the Power Slave tour at the time. And so Maiden, and, you know, going back and getting all the earlier stuff and just loving everything they were putting out up to that point and continuing on with Maiden for a while anyway. But that was another one of those really early formative bands for me. So basically, in the beginning, when I'm 14 years old or whatever, most of my cassette collection at that point in time, I was mostly collecting cassettes, was Kiss, AC/DC, Iron Maiden, and Black Sabbath. That was the main part of my collection. And then MTV and being of a certain age and seeing certain bands, I started getting into what was being played there. And one of the other bands that really hit me is Motley Crue. This is the Shout of the Devil record. I still remember the first time I saw the Looks to Kill video, and as a teenager, I was totally hooked. I was probably 15 at the time. I want to say I was probably in the 9th grade when this record came out, and I mean, this is just a killer record all the way around, and this is another one of those bands, you know. So this comes out, and then I've got to go get Too Fast for Love, which is a great record, and then we're waiting, and of course, Home Sweet Home, or Theater of Pain comes out, which, you know, the Home Sweet Home video, we were all kind of into that, and the Smoking in the Boys Room, and watching all that stuff, so Motley Crue was a big part of that era also. As I went on, of course, I didn't really care for the Theater of Pain album, but it's grown on me as time has gone on. I loved it in the beginning, but then kind of fell off on it. Another band that was from that era and from that time for me is Twisted Sister. This is the Stay Hungry album. This is when we first see Twisted Sister. When I first saw Twisted Sister was, of course, the video, for We're Not Gonna Take It. And, as a teenager and you see these guys and what's going on, this is written for us. So I loved this record and then went back and got Under the Blade and You Can't Stop Rock and Roll and just rocked out and really loved those 3 records by Twisted Sister. Then the next album comes out, not so good. They kind of fall off, but that's okay. Still one of those bands that I was really, really into. Another band I was super into at that point in time, Rat, the Out of the Cellar album. Same thing, MTV, first time I saw the video for Round and Round. I just thought they were so cool and such a great band. I had to go out and I got this, which is their debut album. And then I did get the EP and have both of those when I was younger. And then kept up with Rat pretty much all the way through until the breakup, After it's not the original 5 anymore, after Reach for the Sky and all that, I kind of stopped paying attention. Of course, I had moved on in style of music also, which I will be showing next, obviously. So Rat was another one of those big bands that I was really into that was forming my musical taste. Then one day I had a friend, I don't know, this is all kind of at the same time. So I can't really, this isn't all about time frame necessarily. It's just an era. So one day I think I'm a 10th grader, and my buddy, who was a year younger than me, was really into like tape trading. And I don't know how he had gotten into it. And he comes over and says, "You got to hear this record, man. You've got to hear this tape I got in the mail." Basically like a blank tape with stuff written in pencil and stuff that he had gotten through the back of some music fan magazine or whatever, the tape trading thing that was going on in the 80s. So he comes over and says, "You've got to hear this music that's coming our way and what we're listening to." And he played this. And this record here, Metallica, Kill 'Em All, is all I could say. His life was never the same after this. We had never heard anything like that. Like I said, we're listening to Twisted Sister and Motley Crue and Maiden and Priest and Kiss and Sabbath and stuff. And then he comes over and says, "You got to hear this tape." And he plays this. It's called Kill 'Em All by Metallica. And we didn't even have the cover. We just had a blank tape with songs written on it and the title on it. First time I heard it, and we were just like blown away by what we were hearing. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever heard. Just fast and heavy. I'd never heard any music like it at all in my life. I'm a 15-year-old kid living in Roy, Utah. So, we're not getting exposed to music like you did if you lived in New York or in San Francisco or LA or whatever. We're just getting what's coming across the radio and what's coming on MTV, and this is not being played that way. And we didn't have underground rock scenes from where I lived in a small suburban white area or whatever. You had to go to Salt Lake City for that, and we were too young to be going to Salt Lake City for underground rock shows. So we had no idea this type of music even existed until we heard this, and we were blown away, and we were fans ever since. And then I find Megadeth, and Megadeth, of course, becomes one of my most favorite bands. As you can tell, I've got the banner over my head up there, and you guys know I'm a Megadeth fan. You've watched this channel, you know that. This is So Far So Good, So What. First time I saw Megadeth was again with MTV because some heavier music was starting to be played, and I saw the video for Peace Sells, and I'm like, that's some good shit. That sounds kind of like that Metallica band. That kind of sounds like Metallica, heavier. We were calling it speed metal at the time. It wasn't called thrash music back then. It was speed metal. So once Megadeth comes in, they moved to the top of the list for me when it comes to speed metal. What we called speed metal, which is now called thrash. I pulled out So Far So Good, So What to kind of tell a story about this. I had Peace Sells and I had Killing Is My Business. And when this record was coming out, I knew it was coming out. Go to the record store on a Tuesday when they open at 10 o'clock at the mall and say, "Hey, where's the new Megadeth album out?" And I'm like, "We haven't even got it out of the boxes yet." I'm like, "It's supposed to come out today. Go get it." So they go back and cut open a box and come out and grab me a cassette and hand me the cassette, and I like to say I'm the first person to buy this record in the Ogden, Utah area. I went to the mall. They hadn't even pulled them out of the boxes yet. The box was still closed. I made the clerk go back and get it for me. And I love this record too. I think this is a severely underrated Megadeth album, and a lot of people, you know, it's got great songs on it. This is the one with the remake of Anarchy, but it's got, 502 and In My Darkest Hour and, just Set the World Afire. Just really great songs. If you read anything that Dave has written, they talk about this record like, well, we were out of money because we needed more money for heroin, so we just kind of threw this record together. So he doesn't really talk about it a whole lot like it's one of his favorites, but I've always loved this record, and like I said, I think this is severely underrated. It's right after Peace Sells, and then the next record comes out is Rust in Peace, so it kind of gets lost in the middle, but this is a great Megadeth record. And another band that helped form my musical taste is Slayer. This is Rain and Blood, one of the greatest thrash albums of all time. 35 minutes of pure thrash. This is not the first Slayer I had. The first Slayer I ever owned, I got a copy of Show No Mercy, if I remember correctly. In the back of Circus Magazine was this logo, and it said Slayer. For cassette or whatever, send $5 in a self-addressed stamped envelope. So I sent a self-addressed stamped envelope and $5, and a few weeks later, Show No Mercy shows up in my mailbox in cassette form, and I didn't even know what I was getting. I just knew that logo looked cool, and I had to figure out who these guys were. So, and we were getting into heavier music: Metallica, Slayer, Anthrax, Megadeth, Overkill, Testament. Well, Testament came a little bit later, but, all that early stuff we were listening to, Flotsam and Jetsam and all that, because my friend was a tape trader, so he was in on the underground scene. So Slayer was one of those bands too. So, I just thought I'd pull that out and just kind of talk about that, and that's kind of what leads me to my taste in music. Of course, I'm a product of my time. That's the stuff that was popular. Bands like Rat and Motley Crue and Poison and Bon Jovi and Def Leppard, and we liked all of those bands. And then the thrash stuff comes out, and all this stuff is happening while, you're basically in some of the greatest years of your life, if you think about it. The fact that you have no responsibility. You have just friends, and, we all had, I had a job, and we went to school, and I worked nights, and we partied, and we just listened to music, and we were out there just, in our battle jackets and our denim jackets with our patches on it, and we're out cruising around the streets and just hanging out and making bad decisions, and the music is the huge part of the soundtrack of that era and time. So, and that's what kind of leads to where you go, and as the 90s came on and grunge music came in, but so did groove metal, and we got bands like Pantera, and then we got nu metal, and we got Korn and Limp Bizkit and all that type of stuff, and it just grows and grows and grows into what you see here behind you today and the style of music that I listen to. And it's always been rock and roll. It's always been heavy metal. And those are the reasons, those bands right there. And I really do think it all starts with like Billy Squier, honestly, in the beginning, because, we had Styx and Journey and those type of bands, but I wasn't really into any of those bands. Those were cool songs, and I had friends that listened to them, and we would hear them on the radio, but something about Billy Squier struck me as like, this is really cool. I really, really like this, getting the record and just like listening to it all the time and becoming a fan of something, other than just like what the older kids were listening to or whatever, and becoming a fan of a certain type of music. And then, of course, when I got into Kiss and becoming a super fan, it just, hooked right away and just like wanting to hear and just consume everything that they had and everything they put out. And then that just kind of starts this rabid fandom thing, like, what's next? Who else is it? And then it's Maiden, and it's AC/DC, and it's Sabbath, and it's Slayer, and it's Rat, and it's, everything. You just, when you find it and you love it, you just consume it, and you just want to have it all. You want to have everything that they've done, and you just want to know everything about them, all that fanboy stuff that I did when I was a teenager. And that's what, leads me to today, and listening to stuff I listen to and trying to keep up with modern metal, and, and now I've got my son who's kind of the same way. He's a rabid fan of certain bands, and he's introducing me to stuff. So It's just been a really cool thing, and music has been a huge part of my life. As for all of us in the VC, we wouldn't be doing this if music wasn't a huge part of our life. So, anyway, I am now rambling. I really appreciate you guys for watching. I want to appreciate everybody who jumped on the thread I put out last week, and you know, you guys are awesome. There's more coming from what I saw today, and I'll be watching those later. But I really do appreciate all you guys for, you know, listening to me ramble for the last 20 minutes. Thanks a lot, guys. I love you all. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. Enjoy yourselves and be safe. And I will talk to you all later, man. Have a good one.